Good morning and welcome to WNHH Radio's Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make the Elm City tick. Well, Jewish Family Services has been making New Haven tick for a long time. Among the many services it does, including keeping people fed and clothed, is that it finds loving homes for children, foster homes, and homes with newly adopting parents. 3 women involved in those efforts are here in the WNHA studio this morning to update us on their work. Say good morning to Elaine Benavides, Marguerite Lichtenstein, and Alexis Bonell. Did I get everyone's name right?
Perfect.
Yes, you did.
All right, so we're starting the week. Okay, and by the way, we usually have Mayor Monday, but Mayor Tony Harp is at the Criminal Justice Confab, a big thing going on in Hamden this morning. So we'll be hearing more about that. And thanks to Yale New Haven Hospital for providing support for today's program. Well, good morning, everyone. And
Hi.
I thought we'd start with foster care, and I know we said Alexis actually went through foster care, now works in it.
Yes,
And Elaine, you're the foster care program manager.
That's correct.
So tell us about what JFS does, Jewish Family Services, with foster care, and what's going on now.
Okay. We work in collaboration with the Department of Children and Families.
That's a state department, DCF.
That's correct. They refer the harder to place youth with us, mostly teenagers, kids, who have suffered neglect and abuse. But on top of that, have had a bad stroke of luck and have been moved throughout the system from home to home. Sometimes they've been in group homes and residential programs. And so DCF looks to us to place these kids in families who, can work with them.
And you said teenagers mostly because there are a lot of heartbreaking cases with the little kids. They're all heartbreaking, but, little babies and at birth when the mothers give them up, or, terrible things have happened in their homes when they're young. Why is it that you guys do teens? Is that a specialty you folks have carved out?
Yeah, that's the therapeutic foster care program. And we also have a medically complex program, which is much smaller. And I just placed a baby in that program on Friday. But they're babies with really high medical needs. So, this baby was born premature and, has really weak lungs, and they have a VNA coming in daily to help. So, there could be kids with feeding tubes, ventilators, kids who'll never walk. So we do have that program as well that does place babies and younger kids. And therapeutic foster care does place younger kids, but it's few and far between, and they're the hardest in the state. Kids with real difficult behaviors.
Okay,
and
it's and if you don't mind getting real close to the mic,
okay.
Marguerite.
I guess that there are a lot of young children in the system.
If you don't mind getting close to the mic,
but
Marguerite,
it is much easier to find families willing to take in young children because they're cuter and easier to deal with generally. So the state contracts with private agencies to find homes for the more difficult children. So that is what
and that's
we
asking
specialize.
a lot in a family, that to take in someone who's going to have challenges. But again, I guess there's sometimes people who weren't able to have children on their own and want to do that. And, you're doing a mitzvah, you're taking in somebody. We've heard horror cases. I know they're very few and far between about people who do it for the money. I don't know, aren't always nice to kids. I mean, I have one friend who was in and out of foster care her entire life and said most of them were not very nice. This wasn't in Connecticut. It sure is surely not through JFS. But, I know that happens. I seem to remember you folks do a lot of screening of the parents, correct? And what are you looking for? How do you make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, I'm the supervisor of the program, but I'm the first person that people reach when they want to do this. So they call me and they talk about their interest. And I talk with them very seriously and frankly about the needs of the kids in the system and how we're looking for families who can stay committed, who can really care. And then if they get through that phone interview, I schedule a face-to-face with them to discuss it even more in depth. So at that point, I give them the application packet and they go through a thorough, DCF, police check, FBI, all of the different checks. And so it's a long process to become approved. You just don't walk in our door and get approved a week later. It takes a good, I would say, about 6 months.
And you do home visits, I take it?
Oh, yeah. We do home visits, yeah.
And am I right that it's hard to find foster parents?
Very hard.
Mm-hmm.
So then the pressure's got to be on you then sometimes. On the one hand, you got this pressure to make sure it's a good home and these people are right. And on the other hand, people need a home and they got to go somewhere. So how do you balance that? Do you often reject people? What are you looking for in those interviews?
Yeah, I don't necessarily reject people unless, of course, they don't come through with the basic safety, checks. But a lot of people will decide this isn't a good fit for them because they're really looking for younger, less complicated kids. Kids who are going to get along with their own children. These kids don't know how to get along with other children because they haven't been in a place long enough to learn relationships and how that goes.
Wow, that is really hard because I'm thinking as a parent, I was selfish. My kids are grown now, but I wouldn't want like people in the house that were going to make it harder for my kids to grow up. Although I guess they get a lot out of it too if you learn how to get along with other people and understand the complexities of other kids. But that is asking a lot of a parent.
It is.
But then they get their reward. I mean,
Well,
the
and
by and by, they've really done something wonderful.
we also offer a lot of support to our foster parents. We go to their house weekly, more often if necessary, to problem solve with parents, to talk with parents and children, and to help the process go as smoothly as possible. But we're certainly looking for people who have a sense of humor and who
Won't freak out at every
and,
seeming
yeah,
crisis, all the
yeah,
drama.
who have some capacity to go with the flow and who do not have the need to have a child immediately turn around and thank them or say I love you, because that they will not get until maybe this kid is a lot older.
And what's your caseload at a
Can
time?
I piggyback on Marguerite
Yeah,
for a second?
sure.
One of the reasons that I'm the first, voice they hear, first face they see, is not only to screen, but I also want foster parents to get really connected with me because even though I'm the supervisor of the program, once a placement is made, I hand that case over to one of the workers. I want that family to feel that if their worker is busy with another crisis, they can phone me. I'm just not a name and a non-face behind the desk. So, they feel supported by their worker and by me. And
So
also,
what kind of caseload do you have?
well, we have a contract with the state of Connecticut that only allows us to have 9 children per worker. So
That's
it's
a
a
lot of
small caseload,
Mhm.
but it's a hefty caseload.
And how many workers you got?
We only have 2 full-time case managers and Alexis, who's our helper.
So that means do 18 kids at a time or a little more?
Yes.
And
right
plus,
now we're at 18.
But does that mean at any one time, or does it mean how many you place a year?
It depends. We'll place as many as we can, but it's a challenge.
All right. Well, the challenge we're talking about is adoption and foster care placement. And one of the great agencies in New Haven that's learned how to do it, and the state trusts to do it well, is Jewish Family Services. We're talking with Elaine Benavides, who runs the foster care program. We'll be talking a little more with Marguerite Lichtenstein, who's the adoption team leader, and Alexis Bonnell, who has a special perspective on this because you've seen it from both ends. Alexis, I understand right now you work in the program, but you were a foster child yourself.
Yes, I was.
And if you don't mind getting close to the mic. So, Alexis, where did you grow up?
So I grew up all over in Connecticut. I was born in Bridgeport, and then I was sentenced into foster care when I was 16.
And how did that happen, if you don't mind my asking?
My parents came from a really rough, tough background. My mom passed away at a very young age, and then my father was highly addicted to drugs.
Oh,
so
my.
It was a very tough.
And were you the only child, or were there other children in the house?
No, I do have a younger brother that's also been going through a rough path right now, which I'm hoping he'll get better in the end. But, this is why I wanted to help kids that are going through the same process.
Hard thing growing up around drugs. So would you see it in the house and stuff?
I have, yeah. It's not easy either.
So how did it come about that finally you were placed into foster care? Was there an incident, or was there
the state felt like my home wasn't safe. So they immediately removed my brother and I.
How'd you feel about that?
It was hard, very hard sometimes. Not knowing if I was ever going to go back home. Finding the right foster family for me. It wasn't until my foster mom that gave me the second chance of having the stable childhood that I needed.
And so you were 16. How old was your brother?
He was 15.
Okay. And were you placed together?
No, we were separated.
And how was that? Did that make it harder?
It did, because it kind of as we got older, we don't have that stable connection as a brother and sister would.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
So when was this? How old are you now?
I'm 25.
So this was only 9 years ago.
Yep.
So you were 16 years old.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, it wasn't Jewish Family Service. It was another. Was it state, or was it a
It was in
contract agency?
Connecticut. Yeah.
No, but I mean, who handled the placing them?
Hopewell. It was Hopewell Agency, and it was in Hartford.
Okay, so where did you go to one foster home or several?
Several.
So what happened when you went through on that journey?
Well, it was a tough thing back then because I was suffering through like a lot of depression and anxiety. So, the state wanted to make sure that I was capable of being in the home before I was able placed in the home. And then when Hopewell decided they wanted to place me with a family because they had hope that I'm able to have a family that I've always wanted to have. It wasn't until I met my foster mom um, when I was 17 years old, so I was already a junior in high school.
So what happened in that first year? Did you go to a facility or something?
Yeah, so I was based in and out of like shelters and group homes, stuff like
Ooh,
that.
what was
So
that like?
it was scary,
Where?
all over. As long as they had a bed for me, that's where they placed me. They didn't really place me.
And Lauren Werner says, what bravery to share your story, Alexis. It's important to have a passion for what you do. And though I'm sad your struggles brought you to your passion, I'm glad you found a way to make a difference. Thank you for listening, Lauren, and thank you for commenting here on Dateline New Haven at WNHH FM.
And what I would like to add is that Alexis then did have a foster mother who was incredibly helpful.
Oh, I definitely want to get.
her.
I definitely want to get that. I was hoping to go chronologically.
Okay.
So you went.
You want my lifetime story.
So when you, well, I'm just interested in the foster care process.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like it's very tough on the kids, despite the best intentions of the grown-ups trying to help them. I mean, for instance, were they thinking when they placed you about keeping you in the same school in the same city? Like, how did that work?
So like I said, it depends on the foster family and it depends on the amount of space and beds that they had there. For me, I was lucky enough that my foster mom wanted to keep me stable and have, a childhood that I needed to have to become a better adult.
But what I meant is when you were in facilities, you were sent from city to city at
Mhm.
first. That meant did you stay in the same school? Did they bus you
No.
down to Bridgeport? So did you also have to deal with going to schools where you didn't know the kids?
Yeah.
That's what I wondered, if that part made it harder.
It did make it hard because it felt like I could never process anything clearly as a normal child would have. But in the end, I felt like it made me much stronger because like now I could help teens that went through the same process
And I do
that I have.
definitely want to ask you about that. Was there any secret you had or any kind of trick to help you feel better when times were toughest? When you're moving to a new school, you're going to a new school, going to a new facility. Was there anything you looked to hold on to say, I'm going to get through this, or this is going to help me?
Sure. I want to say my faith. I'm a Christian, so my faith in God like made me much stronger. I know it's harder for some people to believe in God, but for me, He made me open up a lot of
It's interesting.
doors.
I've heard that from other foster kids.
Yeah.
And really had this deep belief. And was there any reason you were able to believe in God when it's the hardest time to believe?
I just felt like He made me so much stronger, and He helped me get to where I needed to be today. And I felt that from the very beginning.
So now you said you did get placed eventually with a foster mom when you were
Mhm.
17. And how did that come about?
So I was placed through Hopewell Agency, which is similar like JFS. I was placed under the home of my mom. She had two other biological children of her own, similar to my age. And she was a hardworking, independent woman. She was tough. She showed me tough love.
Give me an example. You were
Um,
out too late and she said you're not going to movies for a month.
Yeah, so I never had that normal childhood growing up. So when I went to her, it was really hard for me to go back to a normal childhood. So it was very like she was very tough love on me, but she wanted me to be a safe, responsible adult as I got older.
Can you think of a time you tested it?
I tested it a lot of times.
Just give me one story if you feel like it. If you
Um,
don't, it's fine.
There's just too many to think of right now. But yeah,
Okay.
but in the end, she just made me so much stronger, and I'm really grateful
What
for her.
city was that in?
Holland.
Wow, so you've been all over the joint.
Yes, I have.
Okay, so Tomlin, was that northwest Connecticut or northeast?
North. It's towards Massachusetts.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
up 91, you go off
Yep.
91. Is that a nice place?
Yeah, it's nice. It's small. It's a small country home. My mom had tons of animals in the house. We just had a pet pig that passed away recently. So my mom made all of her kids feel like a part of the family.
How many kids were there?
So it depends on how many they're allowed to place. When I was there was only me and one other foster child.
Oh, there was another foster child in the
Mhm.
home. Was there also biological children?
And there was 2 biological children.
Wow, that's busy house. And
Yeah.
2 parents or 1?
2 parent.
Okay, but you kept talking about the mom. She was kind of the
Yeah,
main.
she was the main.
Well, that's great. So, and how did that feel? So, did you feel at some point this is going to make a difference for me? I feel like I have a home now.
Yeah, so, I was able to focus on school, now that I was in more of a stable school. I traveled with my school. I went to Washington, D.C. with them. I went to Virginia with them. I've also traveled with my mom. We went to Disney World, places like that. She just made me felt like part of her family.
And how long did you live there?
Till I graduated, which was I was 18, and then from there I went to like an independent living program through DCF.
So, you only spent a year in Tallinn.
Yep,
But it seems like it was a pretty important year.
it was.
I
'Cause
mean,
it,
it's interesting. It sounds like that year was a huge part of your life.
yes, it was.
You felt like a 1 year could make a difference like that.
It does. Very.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
So, you went to independent living program through DCF. You went to college or?
Yep. So I graduate this June with my bachelor's
Oh, way to
in
go.
psychology. So I'm very excited about that. I love my school. I love
What
being able
school is it?
Charter Oak. I
Uh-huh.
do it through online. I love having the balanced life between work and school. So I thought that was like the perfect fit for
Then you
me.
schlep all the way down here in New Haven for Jewish Family Services.
Yes, I have.
All right. And what do you do there?
So I am a foster care recruiter. I help recruit new foster parents, and I try to help stable the kids in our foster care program. I also help the kids with their life skills to also help them become more independent as they age out of the
I'll
program.
bet that you're able to draw on your own experience to do that.
Yes.
And Keith, you want to tell me an example recently where you're able to do that, where a parent or a kid had a challenge and you were able to draw on your own experience to guide them?
It happens daily.
It does. I think I'm able to find some connections with some of the teens in our program. And it's very interesting when I see it because sometimes I feel like I'm too hard on myself and I feel like I don't really connect with some of our kids. But when they keep on calling me, just wanting to talk,
I'll
or
bet you're the good person to call.
yeah.
So if you want to give an example, not tell me about who the kid was or where they live or
Sure.
anything, but the kind of thing you're able to help them with recently, like one example.
I think one of the kids, was struggling with depression and she just wanted someone to talk to, like as a mentor and being that one-on-one buddy type of person. And it really helped her. And she struggles with a lot with anger. And I was able to help her control a little bit on her anger and just have her open up to me normal.
Well,
And
that's great.
there's a boy right now who's actually moving his way into an independent living kind of situation that keeps calling on Alexa. He's right on that door. Like in a month, he's going to be out and without supports. And we've known this boy since he was like 2 years old, the agency.
Wow.
We placed him in an adoptive placement that didn't work out for him and he came back into the system. So he's having a lot of separation, kind of like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? And he keeps calling on Alexis. Alexis has been working very closely with
And
him.
let me ask, either Alexis or Elaine or Marguerite, one thing I think about when I hear these stories is if I were in that kid's shoes, it might be hard for me to feel okay about myself. Like a lot of times when a tragedy happens that's beyond the control of a kid and they don't have the person taking care of them, they internalize it. They feel like it's their fault. That there must be something wrong with me that I didn't get to have the protection that the kids around me. I mean, is that true? Is that something you deal with and see?
Yeah, they
That
feel
you're
very
able to talk
different
to?
and alone. There's no doubt about that. And I think having Alexis on board as a staff member who's been there has really made a difference in a lot of these kids' lives.
And are you hoping to do more of this, Alexis, when you graduate? What are you looking to do full time?
I also want to still continue doing case management and continuing building relationships with these teens because I feel like there's such a need. And if I could just mentor just one kid, that'll just make my entire life.
Well, it's great that you're able to turn around your life experience to help other kids.
Yeah.
And we're talking about that on Dateline New Haven and WNHH-FM. We're talking about adoption and foster care with one of the great agencies experienced in doing that, Jewish Family Services. And we're talking to Elaine Benavides, Marguerite Lichtenstein, and Alexis Bunnell. Now, Marguerite, you focus on the adoption end of stuff, right?
Yes, I do.
And how much adoption work do you do? How many kids do you place in a year, and how much case management do you do at JFS? Because I know it's a big part of the mission.
We actually have a fairly small adoption program. We used to do a lot of international adoption, but there are many fewer children available for international adoption.
Hmm.
So
Why is that? Is that because of other countries clamping down on it, or less immigration, or what's the
no, it's other countries
like
clamping
China? I
down
know,
on
and
it.
Russia, right?
Yeah,
Russia especially said.
yeah,
And am I right in thinking back JFS? I'm thinking when Lou Lehrer brought all those, helped get all the former Soviet Jews relocated here,
right,
families.
yeah.
Was that kind of how that specialty developed at JFS?
We
I'm
were
thinking back to the 1990s now.
Yeah, we were doing international adoption prior to that, and there was also, for quite a while, we licensed families to adopt through the Department of Children and Families. Um, but there's much less international adoption, and so currently we focus on doing home studies for people who do infant adoptions within the country.
Okay, so now that means that you don't necessarily pick the parents. You're helping DCF figure out if these are going to be good homes for the people.
No, this is no longer has anything to do with DCF.
Okay, I'm
This
sorry.
is couples who are looking to adopt
Oh,
babies anywhere within the country, and we do their home study. They find agencies that work with mothers who want to place their children for adoption, and a connection is made. And then we usually work with those families for a while after to ensure that everything is going well.
Now, how many cases do you have at a time?
We maybe have 8 or 10 cases at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And we also occasionally are called up by women who who are pregnant and want to place their children for adoption.
Mm-hmm.
And we help them find families to do
That's
that.
a mitzvah too. Margaret, is there a day you can think of recently where you said, boy, this is why I'm doing this. This is really how I'm making a difference?
Well, sure. Just last week, the end of last week, I visited a couple. These were two young men who had just gone to Florida to pick up the baby who'd just been born and had been, their birth mother had picked these two young men to raise her child. And they had just gotten home with him. He was maybe 2 weeks old, and they were really happy. The baby was adorable, and I thought that this baby was going to have a really good life with these two, with this couple, and
It's a nice feeling.
it's a very good feeling.
I was just with my baby grandchild on Saturday. I know there's no better feeling than seeing a kid like that age in a loving home.
Exactly. That is exactly true.
And then you monitor, you keep going for a while to make sure it's working out when babies are placed.
Yes, and we report to the agency in Florida that was also involved in this placement, and they will finalize that adoption.
Marlene, how many years you been doing this?
I've been working in adoption and foster care for 21 years.
Wow, you're the long distance runner here, right? And how often have you had to say in adoption cases, this was the wrong home, and we need to remove the kid?
It has happened. It has happened that parents called us and said, this is not what we hoped for. This is not what we wanted. In which case we try our very best to find a home for a child that is a better match.
And how often does that happen?
Can't really say how often it has happened.
It's not sounding like it's often.
It's not that often. We, because we really try to educate our parents and have a pretty good record as far as stability for children is involved.
And so 21 years.
Yes.
I was wondering, you've seen some changes over that time. For instance, is the legalization of same-sex marriage?
Yes.
Has that broadened the pool and made it easier, perhaps, to find loving parents ready to take someone into a home?
I think Connecticut has for a while already placed children in homes of same-sex couples, and that has made the pool larger, and that is a group that we sometimes also try to find foster parents in.
And what got you interested in the work? Like, how'd you get involved in adoption and foster care?
What got me involved in adoption and foster care? I was always drawn to working with children, and so helping children find stable homes and helping parents who wanted to be a resource for children seemed like a perfect fit.
Good. And we are talking about adoption and foster care with the group from Jewish Family Services. Elaine, how long have you been involved?
It'll be 22 years in June.
Oh, you're a long distance one too. So now,
Yeah.
how did you get involved? Why did you get started?
Oh boy. Well, I'm the first in my family that graduated from college. You know, I come from a family of immigrants, and they worked in factories. And
What part of the country?
they came from the Azores, Portugal. They're islands off of the.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Rhode Island.
I was wondering where the accent. I was trying to catch the
Oh,
accent.
Rhode Island.
Where in Rhode Island?
Tiverton.
Mhm.
And so I didn't really know what to do with my life, and my parents really couldn't guide me. They didn't think college was for us. So I just kind of, was floating around and saw some flyers to volunteer with battered women, and I met social workers, and I decided, you know what, I like working with people. So I went to school, and I ended up getting my master's degree. And I can't say I was attracted to foster care and adoption per se. I was attracted to the agency, Jewish Family Service. I thought they were really nice, authentic
Well, you weren't from
people
here,
there.
right? So what landed you there?
Well, I moved down here. My sister came to law school, Quinnipiac, and I came down with her, and I settled here. And when I interviewed with the person in my position at the time, Nancy Horowitz, I really liked her, and so I came on board because I liked her, and I fell into this, and I've been doing the work ever since.
In those 21 years, I'm not asking for the moment, but can you think of a moment you'll never forget that distills for you? Similar to what I was asking before, it distills for you why you do the job, how the difference,
I do the job.
or just a moment you'll never forget on the job. That
When I
kind of-
connect with people, the teams, the families, and I feel I get them. There's been lots of moments.
You can
Not
tell me
just-
one.
Oh God.
Last week or when you started. You getting a little coaching here.
I don't know. Recently, there was somebody who said they love their fan, but why can't I? Because I'm on the radio, I can't think of it. Oh yes, I got called. I always get called out to the house, because like I'm the supervisor and families meet
So like
me.
all night, can people text you and stuff? Do they wake you up?
Well, Alexis is our on-call person. Just recently, though, just within less than a year before that, all of us kind of share that responsibility. We're back up. And she really needs something in the night, she will reach out to us. But yeah, and so, people call me out to the house when there's problems, always when there's problems. And just recently, this 17-year-old boy asked to see me, and I come out to the house, figuring I'm going to help him iron out something. And he said, by the way, I called you out here. He said, because you said, you listened to me. You heard me when I said I wanted to live with this woman because he had been there for respite, but he was living in another family. He said, and it was hard for you, and you made it work and happen. He said, and this is the happiest I've ever been in my life. And I was like, holy moly,
That must feel
So
good.
it does,
And so that was respite, meaning that he lived with somebody else, but they get a break by having you go somewhere else.
Yeah, like he went away.
And was
foster
this the
family.
respite place, or had it become his permanent place?
It became his permanent place. He told me I want to live with that woman, and he's been there for a couple years, and
Oh, excellent.
the happiest he's ever been. That's a pretty powerful statement.
Yeah. So before we end, I loved hearing your stories. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thanks for the work you do. Alexis, what's a message you would give to kids, teens who are in the situation you were in, where it's looking bleak, they're going to help, they're going to be moving into a new situation? What advice would you give them?
Don't give up. There's always a chance out there where you could be working in my shoes and helping kids that have been there where you've gone. There's always hope, and never lose the hope that you have.
That's a nice way to end it.
Can I give my contact information?
Of course.
Anybody who's interested in doing this?
Anybody who
please.
wants to be either a foster parent or an adopted parent, correct?
Yeah,
Oh, no, foster, because you get the agencies
Yeah,
for the other.
foster. I mean, sometimes it ends up in adoption, but
And who wants to be a foster parent, how would they go
Yeah,
about doing it through you?
you know, anyone can really do this as long as you have a safe home. Call me 203-389-5599. I'm at extension 115, and I'd love to chat.
203-389.
5599,
5599,
extension 115.
extension 115.
And let's add that single people can do this, married people can do this, same-sex couples can do this, anybody can do this.
Older people who
gotta-
have raised grandkids.
You got a heart and a home.
Absolutely.
All right, and Jewish Family Service is going to help you get there.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, everyone, today. Thanks for our guests, Elaine Benavides, Marguerite Lichtenstein, and Alexis Bonnell. Thanks to Yale New Haven Hospital for providing support for today's program. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience, performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.